And we're live. Awesome. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for your time today and for attending. We've got a fantastic call with Holly this morning. So Holly is going to make everybody's website super polished and awesome by the end of this. So there'll be no excuses when we're looking at each other's websites online in the future. At the same time as well, we've been discussing an opportunity to do a bit of market research as part of this series of marketing events. And so off the back of it, I'm just going to share a link in the chat. It's basically a very quick survey, but off the back of the survey, what we're going to do is put together a market research report around what SMEs are doing in terms of marketing channels, where they're seeing their spend return on their investment, and we're going to break this down by sector as well. So if anybody's interested in that report as an outcome, please fill in the questionnaire. Anybody that fills in the questionnaire will get the report. We'll send it to them afterwards. But we're looking at this as a nice activity just to really kind of affirm what people are doing right now in terms of their marketing, but also moving forwards, some invaluable insights into what others are doing as well. So we figured that would be quite a nice outcome. Feel free as well to forward the link on. Happy for as many contributions as possible so that the data looks good. That's really it from me. So with that, feel free to interrupt Holly. She said the more interruptions, the better. Is that right, Holly?
Oh, if you knew you were in the room, Holly.
But on that basis, I'm going to hand over to yourself, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, well, thanks everybody for coming. Really good to have you here today. Happy for everybody to introduce themselves in the chat, because obviously the joy of an online webinar is that there's no icebreaker. So we're not going around the room asking you to introduce yourselves, come up with the adjective that describes you that starts with the same letter as your name, none of that. So there's also no confusing coffee machine that you've either got to pump or turn or do something with. You've all got coffee in your own home, hopefully. You've got total control over the room temperature as well. The downside is there's no free lunch. So hopefully you'll stay with me, even though there's not lunch at the end of it for you. So I'm Holly Stibbon from 101. We are a website development, mobile app development and email marketing company. I've been working in the online industry since 1999. Obviously changed a huge amount in that time, both in terms of speed of access, types of marketing that are available, ways of accessing websites, what people expect and how quickly they expect it. So I've got a very whistle-stop presentation packed full of tips for you to take away. There's a lot of thinking involved, so I hope you'll stay with me for that. If you've got any questions as we go through, please do feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Or if you really don't want to talk, or if you don't have a microphone, feel free to pop it in the chat as well. So I'm just going to share my screen. So that one. Okay, so you should all now be able to see the presentation. Yeah, thanks for that. Good, so this is me. If you'd like to tweet or throw out, please do. If you think I'm good, if not, we're not on Twitter. If you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, please do. I'm under Holly Stibbon. As far as I know, I'm the only one in the world, so it should be fairly easy to find. Okay, so make your website an asset. The things I'm going to cover with you today is what is a website and why should you have one? We'll start right at the beginning. We're then going to look at planning your website and the processes that your website needs to fulfill for you and or engage. We're going to look at design, navigation and structure. We're going to have a look at human versus robots. So what are we producing for humans visiting our website and what are we producing for the robots, the search engines that visit our websites? We're going to look at how to get return visitors, how to make our website mobile responsive, and then I've got a takeaway summary for you so you can take some of this away and start to look at your own website and make improvements. Okay, so what is a website? Well, a website is fundamentally a hub or a home for your content, and all roads lead to home. So it receives traffic from various sources. So this might be search engine, it might be a direct link from another website, could be a referral from somewhere, could be social, but it basically takes that traffic. Its job is to gather some data and intelligence from people. So that could either be from them filling in a form, or finding out what the most visited pages are, or the least visited. Sometimes we've got content on our website and it's no need for it to be there because nobody actually looks at it. It engages other processes. So this may be when somebody subscribes to an email newsletter, a process has to be engaged. It might be somebody inquiring on your website, a process has to be engaged. But fundamentally, I like to think of websites as another member of staff. It's got a job to do, might have several jobs to do, and it should be working for you. And one thing you don't have with a website is any HR issue. So treat your website like a member of staff, treat it well, give it the information that it needs and a place to flourish, and it will do well. So why do you need a website? Well, first of all, clear your mind, forget about your current site, forget about all the bits that are on it, don't get carried away. Come right back to basics. What does your website actually need to do? So don't think about functionality, think about the actions or the processes that it needs. So it may need to allow members to join online. It may need to accept inquiries. It may need to reduce your incoming calls or your administration. The functionality that a developer can provide for you to help a website do these things is varied, and there's many different ways of achieving the goal. But what we need from you as the customer is, what is that goal? What is it that your website actually needs to do? What does success look like? So have an idea of what you actually want from the website, and when it's starting to hit the mark for you, what is that? Is that an amount of sales? Is it a certain amount of inquiries? Is it the phone stopped ringing with the same question over and over again? It might be all of these things. Whatever it is, write it down. When you write these things down, because they are so simple and so basic, you can come back to them and look at what you set out to do right from the very beginning. That way, every time you're doing something, you can look at these and say, yep, I'm still on track, or no, I'm not, and I need to pull myself back along the right path. So objectives can be many different things. It could be that you want to gain leads and inquiries, information, post a sales meeting. So perhaps you've gone to visit a customer, you've left them with your business card or a brochure, and they want to get online and find out more about you. You may have various resources and tools for customers and prospects and members that you want them to use to show that you are a very helpful organization. So it might be online calculators or certificate producers, for example. You'll want to probably demonstrate your ability and your knowledge, so that once people have met you, either in person or online, or even just on your website, that, yeah, actually you do know what you're talking about, you know your industry well, and I do want to be either a customer or member, etc. Raising brand awareness is another good objective. The more people have interaction with your brand, the more recognizable you'll be. And if you do it in the right way, you'll gain a good reputation. You may well want to cross-sell other services. So once somebody's on your website, for example, if you're well known for one product or service, but you've just introduced another one, you've got a traffic stream coming in to buy something from you or to interact with you. Let's put something else in front of them as well, if that's what you're now offering. And then to provide that reassurance and credibility, So they may well have met you in an online event such as this. You may well go to our website afterwards and check out who we are, see who we work for, how we work. It just provides that extra reassurance for your visitors. Okay, next up is audiences. Who are you aiming at? Now, there may be a handful of audiences that you're aiming at, or they could be lots. So I've put down a few examples of who these might be, and there may well be audience types that you haven't even thought of, but really you should have done, or you should be. Sorry, not telling you off there, promise. So customers, so it might be existing customers or existing members, perhaps we're having to provide a service to them. Prospects, so people that we want to gain inquiries from. Maybe there's certain types of businesses that you're interested in working with. Perhaps there's certain job roles of individuals within those businesses. So are we dealing with agriculture, construction, could be anything. Job roles, are we looking to aim at people at a senior level or perhaps a more junior level? Decision makers or influencers? If we're aiming at consumers, are we looking at their age, their gender, their interests? Could be all of these things. And there might be certain groups of them as well. So it wouldn't just be consumers as a whole. We might be looking at men in their 20s to 30s with an interest in classic cars. We could also be looking at men in their 50s to 60s with an interest in classic cars. There could also be a female module in there as well. We could also be aiming at journalists. So if you're producing content on your website, you may well want journalists to pick that up and write about it as well. It might be that your company's got some good news that it wants to talk about. And again, we want the journalists to pick that up. Stakeholders, to ensure that you're producing the content that they want to see. And then also staff, so existing staff and prospective staff. So with existing staff, if the content's on the website and they can easily access it, they can then share this with anybody that they're talking to. And also it could give them a good feeling about the company that they're working for and making them feel valued as well. And for prospective staff, if you're on the lookout for staff, people will check out your website. They want to see who you are, what your values are, and what it's going to be like to work for you. So that could well be a consideration that you don't perhaps think about in your initial plan, that you may just want to slip in there. Okay, so your most wanted response. So this is what you want from those people. When they come to your website, they may want something, but what do you want? Do you want them to inquire? Do you want them to pick up the phone, send you an email, read more articles, view more pages, follow you on social, subscribe to your email newsletter, come back again in the future because they think you're great, leave a review maybe? But whatever that is, think about it. And all of these things you should be writing down so that you've got a note of them to come back to later. So I've created a fictitious company called Learn Now. They provide various financial courses and regular training for staff. So I've done this just to give you an example of the types of things that you can include within your plan. So Learn Now's objectives are to gain inquiries for course bookings. So they want people to pop onto their website, fill in their form and say, yes, please, I'm interested in courses. They also want to demonstrate their ability and knowledge in the sector. And because they're a new company, they also want to raise their brand awareness. Their audience is finance managers, finance staff, and company owners. Now, there are three very different audience types. Finance managers may well not go on the course themselves, but they will send their staff on the course. The staff may feel like they need more training, or they've been asked to find suitable training. And company owners may well want to go on a financial course themselves to see how that side of the business should be running. So Learn Now's most wanted response is to get those inquiries. They want people to inquire about a course. They don't mind if that's by email or phone. They want people to share articles on the web. So if there's an article on the website, they want people to share it either via Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, or even reference it on their own blog. They want you to subscribe to their email newsletter so that they can get in touch with you with more useful articles and remind you of courses that are coming up. And they want you to come back for more. So they want to show you that they've got a hub of useful information and it's something you need to keep coming back to and dipping into. And if you've attended a course, they want you to leave a review to show others how good they are. Okay, any questions so far? No, good, I should carry on. Okay, so what does your audience want? So this isn't about what you want, it's about what they want. What have they come to your website for? Now, this could be totally different to what you want from them. And if you don't give them what they want, they're not going to be very happy, and they're probably not going to give you what you want either. So when your audience comes to the website, here are a few examples of what they may well want. They might want reassurance. If you've been out to see them or if you've met them online, they may well be looking at your website for reassurance about who you are. So you may well have case studies on your website, or projects that you've worked on, or news articles, or even general articles to demonstrate your knowledge. They may well want more details about a service or product. So you've talked to them about what it is that you offer, or they've read about it somewhere else, and they're now coming to your website for that information. They may well want useful information, so helps, tips, recommendations, that good free stuff that we all love to give away and people love to receive. They may well want to use an online tool. So if you've got a handy tax calculator on your website, for example, they may well pop on and use that, write down the figures that they need. They might want to place an order, and all they want to do is come on, find your phone number, pick up the phone. They may well want to find an answer to a question. So these days, when we've got a question, we don't tend to ring people and ask. We want to Google it and find an answer ourselves, because that way we don't have to admit that we don't know. If you make it easy for people to find those answers, and then if they still need that extra bit of help, perhaps provide an online chat or your phone number, people love that. And then you've got that make contact or not make contact. So sometimes your audience, when they're on your website, want to get in touch with you. They want to talk to you, they want to find out more, they want answers. And sometimes they just don't want to talk to you at all. They want to interact with you, they want to do business with you, but they don't want to make contact, and that's okay. And then once you've decided what all of these things are, write it down. It doesn't matter how structured your plan is, whether it's scribbled down on a piece of paper, but write it down, because it gives you something to come back to later and ensure that your website is focused. So for Learn Now, their audience, one of their audience types is training managers. Learn Now, their most wanted response is to book training for their staff. But what the training managers want is helpful articles, useful tools, reassurance, and course information. So for every audience type, you ought to be writing down these 3 things. Okay, any questions? No, good. Must be doing well, either that or you're all gone. So I'm going to carry on regardless. So the next thing I've got here is that your website won't do everything for you. It is part of a chain. So, and it is the middle of that chain as well. Your website is never the start and it's never the end. It always will receive a visitor from one traffic source or another. So even if you tell someone your website address, you are the start of that chain and they type it in directly and come directly to you. So your website receives the visitors, it provides the information. It will then convert your visitor into an inquiry, and then it's your job to convert that inquiry into a sale. Remember that chain process. Do not make your website do more than what it's intended to do, because it just won't happen. It'll look like you're trying too hard or you'll miss the mark, but just will not do that job very well for you. So make sure that your website remains really focused on the job or jobs that it's doing, and use your other marketing streams to support it. So how traffic gets in, how traffic comes out. So how will people find you? Well, there's a whole load of marketing channels out there these days. I'm sure you're all well aware. Got printed material, so it might be a brochure or a business card. I had somebody tweet me the other day because they were clearing out their desk drawer from whenever the last in-person event was, however many months ago that was, and they'd got my business card amongst several others. So they've remembered me from a piece of print. They might find you from word of mouth. So, oh, you're looking to have your website redeveloped, go and talk to this company. They may find you from social posts. You might send them an email newsletter, could be your email newsletter, or it could be somebody else's that's referencing you. They may well find you from searching on Google or Bing or one of the others. Are there any others these days? Who knows? They may well find you from an article or a blog post on another website. They might find you from some paid for advertising that you're doing, either with the search engines or on an industry website potentially. Or they may well find your website from a direct email from a member of your team. So if you've been out to see them and you send them an email, thank you very much, great to see you, find some more on our website. They may even find you just from the Outlook footer. So you might well be emailing somebody about, could even be sending them an invoice. On the bottom of your Outlook footer, you've got a link to your website. There's so many traffic sources these days for getting visitors to your site. So here's a little example, and I haven't included every traffic source, but it's just to give you an idea of the amount out there. Are there any other traffic sources that anyone can think of? I don't know if I can see the chat from here.
Yeah, there's nothing in the chat. I think you bring up some really valid points with regards to inbound sources, and you thinking about that journey and how people get to your site to begin with, and what the site's there for. Just out of interest, over the last 5 years, I've seen people do less and less Google PPC. Are you saying the same, that people are looking at, social media as a great on-ramp to their website as opposed to paying money for Google to promote it in their?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really depends on where your audience are, because if your audience are on social media, then that's a great place to find them. But if they're not, then no, it's not a great place to find them. So doing that that audience review and seeing who it is that you want to come to your website is absolutely crucial in determining where you will spend your marketing budget. Pay-per-click advertising, if you're brand new, can work really well to get you going, but I think there are other more effective streams in general than pay-per-click. Okay.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And this comes back to understanding your audience, which was part of the previous session, which was around the strategy. It's understanding different personas and where they exist, and
Absolutely.
how to market the site itself. So with regards to the website, Holly, how do you think about their journey?
Or just wait till the next slide.
Okay, awesome.
Jump in the gun. But I'm glad we're thinking along the same wavelengths even. Okay, so think about the journey. So for all of these different audience types that you're identifying, you need to think about the journey that they will take to get to your website and then through your website as well. So you may well send them an email newsletter, and there could well be some articles in there that they're interested in. So they may well click on one of those articles. Hopefully they'll then read that article. They may well then go on to read other articles, look at your training courses, and then hopefully do what we want them to do, which is inquire. So a journey could well look like this. So from your email to the article, then either directly to the training course or even via another article, and then they may well go on to book a course with you or even make contact. So you need to think about the way the different audience types or audience groups flow through your website. And there may well be different entry points. They may not be coming in from an email, they might be coming in from a social post. Does that change the journey? Or they might be coming in to look at a case study. How does that affect the journey? But have a think about these journeys. And again, you don't have to put them out in such a pretty format as I have, but do have a think, write them down and think about those steps. It's all about taking those nice, simple steps, making it easy for your visitor and not just clobbering them on the email with book now, come and find out more first. Okay. So now we're into design, and I'm not going to talk to you about graphic design. I'm going to talk about structural design. So making sure that you have a clear navigation across the top of your website or wherever it might be. Don't hide it. It's hugely irritating when you go on a website and you cannot find the navigation. Make sure that it is easy to interact with. So test it out. Get some other people to have a look at it. Don't tell them how to use it. Just put it in front of them and see what they do. Be consistent. So as people look at your website, it should have a consistent feel. When they move around your website, it should be consistent. They should know naturally where to look for content. Profile content. So if you've got things that are related to the page that the person's on, pop some links into those articles or to those case studies, whatever the content might be. If I'm on a page all about financial training courses or a particular financial training course, I may well have interest in various blog posts that you've written as well. Pop some links in. And make sure that your design is built to last. So if you're going to add things, so Learn Now, for example, may well bring on some other courses. How are they going to fit within your website? If you don't think about the design for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you could well come to a point where actually you need to have the whole website redesigned, which is quite a big job just to fit things in. So have a think about what you're going to need today, tomorrow, and in 5 years' time, and make sure that there's room for the design to accommodate that. Structure for robots. So by robots, I mean search engines, Google, for example. There's certain things that you have to do to the structure of your website to ensure that your site can be found. Now, when I say you, your developers should be doing this for you. You should not have to worry about the structure of your site. Your development company should offer this as a standard service. They should make sure that your website can be crawled and also that the structure is there for you. So when you're putting in your content, so putting in your titles, they're automatically being formatted as H1s or H2s or whatever they need to be. The URL structure should be automatic as well. You should be able to change it if you need to. However, those defaults should be put in place to give you easy listing. Your content should be keyword optimized and compelling. So the search engines these days want to see that visitors are actually engaging with and finding your content useful. So keywords are important because then they can see what it's about. However, the more visitors you have to that piece of content and using it, interacting with it, the better. Your on-page title, summary, and URL are great places to include your keywords and the most important on the page. And then you can also have SEO title and description that go into Google that are different to your web page. So if we look, I've given you an example. So for example here, the title is Smart Messenger, the MailChimp alternative with added benefits. So that's the H1 on the page. The URL also has Discover the MailChimp alternative with added benefits. So that's, whoops, sorry. That's up the top here. Okay. But then when we look at Google, the listing for this is slightly different. Now, this listing in Google isn't just there to contain the keywords. It needs to be there to attract humans to click on it as well. If it's not enticing for a human and just keyword laden, people aren't going to click on it. So you can have a think about the two different titles and summaries or descriptions from your article to your listing on Google. Okay. Most websites these days are content managed. You should have full control over your content on both the web page and also your SEO title and description. If you look within your content management system, hopefully that's there for you. If not, have a chat with your developer and see where you can find it. Okay, so coming back to structure for robots, your page should be fast to load. It should look good on any device. If your website's not mobile responsive, you're going to struggle to get listed in mobile search results. You should have internal links, so linking to your own content. So we talked before about linking to related content. So if you're in a case study about one topic, you should be able to link to other relevant case studies or news articles, etc. And provide that internal linkage. If you like your own content, the search engine will see that and make note of it. Make sure that your content's shareable. So if people like your content, they could well share it, which then creates incoming links. And when I say share, I don't just mean on social, for example, which is where we all go to when we think about sharing content. Think about other websites giving you a link back. Go and read this helpful article on this other website, referring to you, providing you with a citation. If other people like your content and link to you, Google will see that. Okay, moving on to structure for humans, because it isn't all about Google and getting listed in the search engines. Yes, it's helpful to be in the search engines so people can find you, but actually it's people that we want. We want people on our website interacting with our content and fulfilling our objectives. So when I land on your homepage, I should easily be able to see who you are and what you do. It's amazing the amount of websites out there that do not tell you that as soon as you hit their homepage. It doesn't have to be exhaustive, so I don't need a whole paragraph of text telling me what you do. I should quickly be able to see. A simple test for this is to ask a friend who doesn't particularly know your business very well, pop your website in front of them and just say, what do you think that company does? And if they can tell you, you're doing something right. Keep your homepage tidy. It's not essential to have everything on the homepage. A well-structured navigation should be able to direct people around your site. You should not need to reference every piece of content within your website on your homepage. It's tempting because you think, oh, I must tell people about this, pop it on the homepage, but don't. You can, however, profile timely content, such as the latest news or upcoming events. And you can also signpost important content. So if there are certain bits of content that people come to your website for regularly, you may well want a signposting box on your homepage to direct people to those areas, as well as having it within your navigation. And then provide your contact details. A lot of people may well be visiting your website just for your email address, or to find your phone number so they can call you, or even for your address so that they can come and find you in person, should that ever be allowed at some point. Still with humans, looking at navigation, your navigation across your website should be clear and concise. So try to stick to 1 or 2 words per button if possible. News, events. Use relevant headings, so something which people are going to see and understand and have an idea of what might be behind that button before they even click on it. Finding content should really be intuitive. So you really need to work hard on getting your navigation right. Try and keep your navigation down to 5 to 7 items tops, and then have sub-navigation within that. Most websites will not require any further navigation than that, and the simpler you can make it, the better. It is hard to keep it simple, but do talk to your developer and talk to other people as well. Look around at other websites for inspiration and see perhaps how they cut some of their navigation down. And remember that all content should never be any more than 2 clicks away. We're all very lazy these days. I touched on it when I first introduced myself. Things have moved on. The whole world revolves so quickly now. If you put content more than 2 clicks away, people just aren't going to spend the time accessing it. And then thinking about the structure of the whole website. The homepage is important, sure, and you want to profile certain content, but every page can be an entry point. So when you're sharing articles, when you're getting listed in Google, when you're sending out emails, people don't go to your homepage. They come to the page you direct them to. So you need to think about that. Once somebody's now on your website, do they know where they are, or are they lost within your navigation? Has the button lit up at the top to show them that they're in the articles section or the blog or wherever it might be? Is the whole site consistently formatted? So as I move from page to page, the design stays the same. The layout may well change, but you have a set of layouts so that naturally, as I'm using your website, I know where to look for the content. And have you got those links into your relevant content? So again, this cross-pollination of related content. I'm going to touch on functionality. I'm trying not to talk about it too much today because I believe that's a conversation you should really have with your developer. And this is more about what you need from your website. So you should have control over your content. So your website should be fully content managed to give you that flexibility. And of course, with a website, it's never set in stone. You can always expand functionality. You can add, you can contract. But you need to think about the design limitations in particular. So if your navigation, for example, if you need to add a button, but you're already at full width, how are you going to do that? You need to think about these things, think way into the future, try and think 5 years ahead. If you think 5 years ahead, you should get a lot of use out of your website. And then if there are things on the horizon that you're going to need to do, you're going to need to develop, have a think about when they're going to come along and how much they're going to change your website. Because if they're going to change it quite drastically, you may well need to plan in a rebuild. And if you're planning that in from the beginning, even if the rebuild isn't for 7 years' time, you can be thinking about what those things are when you come to that stage. And discuss it with your developer. The more your developer is in the know about what it is you want to do, how you see your website growing, they may well be able to suggest things or even build the foundations of your website to ensure that when you do grow, your website grows with you. So content, so this is the information that is on your pages. So think about your objectives. Does this piece of content that you're now adding to your website meet one or more of your objectives? And if it doesn't, why are you putting it on your website? Is this piece of content something that my audience wants? So not what you want, but what your audience wants. If it isn't, why are you putting it on your website? Are you creating it for humans or robots? Bit of both, maybe? Who's the main target here? Which wins? Which is the most important for this piece of content? The get in touch versus no need contact. So we may well want to provide a bit of information to show that we know what we're talking about, and you can find out more by contacting us. And that's either a phone call or an email, or could well be downloading a white paper potentially. But what about the no need to contact? If you're a membership-based organisation, or if it's just a question that really doesn't hurt you to answer in full on your website to make somebody feel good, is it okay to give the answers away on your website so that that visitor now doesn't need to contact you? We'll get them another time. And then having a good, clear call to action. If you tell people what you want them to do, they're far more likely to do it. So having well-placed calls to action throughout your content. Call us, email us, read more, subscribe, use the live chat, share, read another article. Whatever it might be, could be a soft call to action, could be quite a hard call to action. But if you tell them what you want them to do, far more likely to click on it and do it. Okay, I'm realizing that I've stuffed quite a lot into this presentation for you, so I'm sorry if I'm going too fast, but I'm trying to give you good value for your time. Forms and follow-ups. So what is the process? We've looked at the process at the start and how people are going to find you. We've looked at how they go through your website briefly, and what about afterwards? So what's the process after they leave your website? So if they fill in a form, are we going to acknowledge that, perhaps by an email? We're going to call them up. Thank you very much for your inquiry. How can I help you? Are we going to put them into a workflow? So are we going to send them other targeted emails or even phone calls at some point? So coming back to Learn Now, if I fill in their booking inquiry form, I'm going to get an automated email that says, thank you very much. There's going to be links to relevant articles in that email as well, so that I can encourage that person to continue engaging whilst they're waiting for me to call them. I'm then going to give them a phone call and talk to them about their requirements. The system could then also send a further automated related email. So they might be reading around the course that's involved, or there might be other articles that they could well be interested in. If they haven't booked at this point, they could well be then sent a follow-up email, reserve your place. And if the course is an annual requirement, we could well book them in for an annual reminder email. So as you're thinking about these journeys through the site, don't forget about your follow-up processes, because they are just as important. Okay, return visitors. So hopefully people want to come back to our website, but do we want them to come back? Do we need them to come back? Why do we want them to come back? What will make them return? So content tends to make people return, or a need for a service or product. There's lots of different content that you can produce to welcome people back to your website, but make sure that it's useful to your audiences. And producing the content isn't good enough sometimes. So we've got all this lovely content on our website, but what about the trigger? What is actually going to call them back? So is it an email to say there's some new content on the website, come and have a look? Is it social? Is it putting it in a search engine so that they can find it and go, oh yeah, I know that company, I'll go and read that content? Is it all of these things? But good quality content is fantastic, but you've got to have that trigger. And when you're learning about people as they're visiting your website, as they're talking to you, as they're engaging with your email marketing and other marketing streams, you're learning what it is that people want to see. Okay, making your website mobile responsive. This isn't just a tick box exercise. So in a lot of web building programs, you can tick a box and, oh, look, the website's mobile responsive. But is it? Yes, okay, it ticks the boxes in terms of functionality, but how does it look? Have you looked at your website on a mobile device? When is the last time you looked at your own website on a mobile device, either a phone or a tablet? Have you looked at every page? Just a home page and a contact page, maybe? Is it similar to the experience on a desktop? So if I'm in the office working away, looking at your website, and then I jump in the car and think, oh, I need the postcode, pull up your website, does it look similar? Or am I going to be a bit uncertain as to whether this is your website or not? Every time you write a piece of content, you should check it. You should give it a read over, do all the link checks, all those standard things that you do in a browser, but also look at it on your phone. Does it look good? Does it lay out well? Is it easy to follow? Can I see the call to action? So whilst a mobile responsive is good for the search engines to improve your search engine ranking, it has to be good for the humans too. If the experience is poor, then that's just not good enough. So test it during development. As your developer's building the site, have a look at it on mobile. What are you expecting to see? Does it lay out well? Does it work well? And then every time you add new content to the website, I'm sorry, it does add to your workload, but it's worth doing. If you spot one issue, that could well save hundreds of people seeing that issue as well. Does anybody do testing on a mobile at the moment? Yeah, some nods, some shakes.
Just on that point, Holly, if it's all right, I'm going to drop the Think with Google link in for people to be able to just run a mobile responsive report of their
Yeah,
website.
that'd be great.
Just purely and simply because Google is taking the speed at which the page loads as one of the primary SEO strategies at the moment. So by all means run that and it will give you a nice report at the other end, which you can then start to have conversations with web developers about, right? And whoever's hosting your site. So
absolutely. And if you don't feel confident enough to run it yourself, ask your developer to run it for you.
No problem. So that's in there for anybody that wants it.
And now I've got a few other. Oh, sorry. Did somebody?
Sorry.
Was it you, Ollie? Sorry.
I think there's a question in the chat that's been asked directly to you. Alistair, is it possible you could come off mute and just run through your questions, if that's okay?
We've just launched a new site at Workplace Chaplaincy, and of course, being mobile friendly is very important. And the advice we were given was that the navigation bar should be at the bottom of the pages rather than at the top. It just makes it easier to navigate, and this is what we've done. But it struck me that people are not familiar with that format because everyone's used to having the bars, this bar at the top of the site. If you know what I'm talking about. So, what's your thoughts about that, Holly?
I would expect the navigation to be at the top, and if it's on a mobile, under like a hamburger style menu, so the 3 lines that you typically see. When you have navigation in the bottom, that is more similar to an app potentially, so how an app might run. It depends on what it looks like and how clear it is. I'd be more than happy to take a look and give you an opinion.
Yeah, just on that point, Holly, there is and like you say, there's this push for progressive web apps, which are basically, mobile app experience, but running in a browser on a mobile phone. So it sounds like your developers have gone down that route, Alistair. I'd still agree with Holly that the standard today is still the burger menu, top left or top right within the website. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just that we're at this transitional point between, Google and Apple and people that are pushing for progressive web apps and that sort of framework and experience versus what we would consider sort of more traditional website layouts. I don't have any data as to how Google would rank that. I think, in all honesty, ask your customers. Did they find it confusing? That's really where you'll get the data from, right? Sorry, Holly.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And even check your website statistics and see if your stats are as you'd expect them to be. Are people finding your website but then actually leaving because they can't get on any further? But talking to people and asking other people what their opinions are, and don't start with, do you find this confusing? I'd say, what do you think of this? And don't be nice to me. Give me your honest feedback. I need the honesty. I don't need the flattery. So, but if you want to drop me an email afterwards, I'm more than happy to take a look and give you an opinion. Okay, I've got a few other tips for you. So, search facilities, do you need one? If you've got a good sound website structure, typically you should not need a search facility on your website. If you've got a busy blog or article hub, you may well want to categorize or even tag those articles to make them easier to find. And then also you can use those tags and those categories to cross-promote that content. And you can even link internally to other bits of content you want people to find. So before you invest in a search facility on your website, do check your structure, because you could well spend that development money somewhere else, increasing traffic perhaps, but don't have a search facility just because your website structure is not there. Get your structure in check. I've got a quick note on GDPR and data protection. We've talked about forms today. All forms should have a privacy notice on them at the point of collection, so on the form itself, to say what you're collecting, what the data will be used for, your retention period, and a link to the full privacy statement. The privacy statement should be a link on your website. Typically it's in the footer. So this is the full privacy statement telling people what you intend to do with their data, how it's going to be used. And it's also where you'll find the cookie policy. You may well have a cookie pop up as well, so that people can accept or reject the cookies, but you can have a cookie statement within the privacy statement. I'm not going to spend too long on these because I know they're not over interesting, but if somebody does want to ask for more information, more than happy to take your questions afterwards or get in touch with me. That's fine. So terms and other legal information, you should have your terms of use of your website accessible as well. So what your website is, what it's not, what it should be used for, who owns the website copyright and its content, and then your company details. You should have your limited company number or your charity number and your registered address available on your website. These things are easily forgotten. They're not hard to add in, but when you're thinking marketing, you tend to forget these items. So have a check, make sure they're on there. And then to summarize, all roads lead to home, which is what your website is. It's home for your content. So all other traffic sources, marketing streams should be driving to your website for people to find out more. Write down your plan, write down your objectives, your audience, your most wanted responses. Document those journeys and follow-up processes. Make sure your website is easy to use and intuitive so people can find your content easily. If it's difficult to find, they will give up and go away. Make sure your content is good and well structured, not just for robots, but for humans too. And ensure you have good, clear calls to action throughout, even if that's just to read another piece of content. And then ensure that mobile experience is there as well for humans as well as robots. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask now. You can email me afterwards if you prefer, or contact me via any means. I'm on most channels. If you want to discuss any ideas you may have or get advice, again, all free of charge, more than happy to help you following today's talk. Does anybody have any questions?
There's a question in the chat from Laura. When setting the website objectives, how important is it to set specific targets, e.g. number of inquiries? You know, I guess this is outcome specific, right?
Personally, I love targets. I want to see what I felt I would get right from the outset and then compare that with what I am going to get. So that's me as an individual. However, you're going to spend money on your website. So therefore, you should be able to measure some outcomes. And that may well be inquiries or visitors or whatever, but set yourself a target. And if you're not hitting it, why not? It might be that your target was unrealistic, fair enough, but at least you had one. So don't think that from the outset, oh, that'll be right, I'll just pop a website together and see what happens. Set yourself a target. What does success look like? Is it 10 inquiries a week, 10 a month, 10 a year? If you don't have an idea of what it is that you want to achieve, you probably won't achieve it.
Yeah, and I think as well, I mean, this is an evolutionary process. You know, very few people get it right the first time.
Absolutely.
And as your product ideas and business changes, you should reflect that through your website. And then the final piece to this as well is having a website that's not static is also very, very good from a Google perspective, but also from an audience perspective. You touched on this point earlier, and I can't stress this enough, which is there's a lot of people that go shouting about their products and services when actually they should think about it in terms of the value to their audience and then write with that perspective. So it's not kind of, we do this. It should be actually, if you're going to take our services on, here's how it can help you. And so those are the sort of, they're the sort of mindset that helps define content. And then finally, great content writing can result in many years of click-throughs. You know, I have a number of people that I speak to that are amazed that an article they wrote 5 years ago still is one of the highest ranking pieces of content on their website. So, you know. Yeah,
and some of those articles you think they would never even get a click in the first place, but actually they can be some of your top performers. Some of them just surprise you sometimes.
Yeah, completely. And also some of it's fashion. You know, what's in the news could be something you've written about 3 years ago, and all of a sudden it's bumped you up the list and you're getting all this organic content. Yeah, it was a fantastic presentation. Really appreciate it, Holly. There was an awful lot of content there for people to go away and think about. Alistair, absolutely ask your audience. But likewise as well, I think Holly's said that you can reach out to her and she'll have a look as well. There's the link in the chat in terms of being able to get that Google Speed report, and also likewise if you could possibly complete the small survey so that we can get a nice market research report together, I think it would be really useful for people moving forwards. With that, I shall hand over to you, Mr. Bridge.
Well, thank you very much, Ollie. And I really just think all I need to do is to thank Holly very much indeed for that excellent presentation. And I think it's given all of us much food for thought. And obviously, going forward now as we come out of the challenges of the last 12 months, really important that we use all the weapons that we've got available, which includes the website, to really promote and push our businesses forward. So thanks very much for that. Really appreciate it. And also to Ollie for chairing the event, which we appreciate, and Sadie, who's on from our team, who is organising these. Really good and a lot of very informative content, which is really welcome at this particular time. So thanks all for being with us. I hope you've got some real benefit from it, and look forward to catching up with you. And Ollie will tell you the next in the series, I'm sure, as I can't quite remember it at the minute, Ollie.
That's a great question. I think the next one is social media and positioning brand. Is that right, Sadie? Just a thumbs up. Awesome. Okay. So with that, by the end of this series, I hope everybody's got all their marketing in place for the next 12 months. And there should hopefully be no excuses for poor web content and bad end user experiences. So thank you very much for joining. With that, I'm not going to talk about cricket again this week because of what happened on Sunday, but hopefully today will be different. But with that, thank you very much for your time and have a fantastic day. We'll send out the recording and also the survey link. Thanks very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.